Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Hitting Zone podcast / Keep Klimbing. We're doing a little bit of a crossover today. Yeah, collab. I wasn't sure what to call it. Yesterday, I was in the facility. I was kind of promoting the show, and I was like, what do I call it? Is it a collab? Is it a crossover? Yeah. Not sure, but I'm excited for this one. Brett Graves, Keep Klimbing podcast here at Youth Baseball Midwest, and also Premier Pitching.
Yep.
We had connected back through the summer and wanting to do something like this, and obviously he was busy with his collegiate league and doing some things. And but we got to give a shout out to Youth Baseball Midwest for allowing this to happen today. Make sure that since you're already on YouTube, that you go up and you hit the subscribe button, dinger. Got to do all those things so that you can get notifications like this. Watch his show, watch my show, watch us together. Bunch of great coaches on there and lots of information. So make sure you're checking them out. Game 7 Baseball, game7baseball.com. You can check out some of their fall events. I think they have maybe one or two more. We're getting into kind of mid-October. So I think tournaments are kind of wrapping up, closing out. And so if you're looking for one, head over there, take a look. And if you need gear, because I think we're getting around the time frame that the hottest bats are starting to come out. I think it comes out mid to late October. They start to produce them 2026 bats. If you're not sure which one to go to, I guess go to Bat Bros. I'm sure they'll tell you what it's like to be a grown man swinging a 32, but -5.
Yeah.
Whatever.
The hottest ones.
Yeah, the hottest ones. I like the guy actually, but I just crack up sometimes. I use the hot bats. I'm like, I think I could still hit one something if I put a little bit of my 3x size into it.
And a little lightning in your hands. Sling it.
I don't have none of that anymore. Let me tell you.
In the bat. The bat's got the lightning.
There ain't no lightning that's coming from this and this anymore. It's thunder, but it ain't lightning.
Thunder.
But anyways, I'm excited about this show. One of the things that we wanted to do getting on here was just kind of talk about the relationship. I caught, he pitched, he also hit. And I don't know if you know this. He could rake in high school. We just learned that the other day on some of the numbers that he had.
I didn't tell him, by the way.
we did look. That's the nature of STL today and stuff like that we get a chance to go back and look. All the way to 1999, which I graduated in 1998, and I would like to have put my -5 stats up against you BB Core guys. But
maybe it's like Wikipedia. Maybe we can just go log in and put stats in, Maybe that's what I did to make you think I could hit really good. I don't know.
Ooh, good point, because Wikipedia is not always factual.
Yeah.
So,
but some login admin access there for you.
Yeah, I wanted to start with the pitcher-catcher relationship because I think for me, it's important. I would imagine building that relationship preseason. You've had some opportunities to pitch in the big league, so probably it was important for spring training. Yeah. How important is it for you, just the pitcher-catcher relationship, not on the level of big leagues, but even high school, youth. I kind of want you to bring it there because that's our biggest audience.
Yeah.
And so how important was that for you as a youngster?
Just in general, the deeper the pitcher-catcher relationship gets, the better the overall game's gonna go. Like from a rolling kind of, average or relationship or whatever. Like as you continue to get to know your catcher better, your catcher gets to know you better. He gets to know how your stuff plays and the obvious, like what type of pitches that you throw. But then all the way down to like what pitches you like to throw under pressure. What pitches within a given day. Like you get deep enough with some catchers here where like you're spending that much time working together in the bullpens, in the outfield, talking, during BP, in the games, whatever. They can start to like read your body language on just like, he just doesn't like that pitch today. So I'm going to do something else when there's 2-2 and a runner on first and second and 2 outs in seventh. Like you get that deep with guys. Absolutely. It just makes a world of a difference. And, so, especially through like professional baseball. There's certain circumstances and dynamics in younger baseball too, but like that's some of the hardest things about professional baseball is that you're just constantly throwing to a new catcher. Whether it be every year, your catcher gets called up, you get called up, like you're just always throwing to new guys. So you're kind of hitting that restart button almost every single year, sometimes almost every single half of the season, maybe even a month, so it can be challenging.
How does that relationship get built? What I got out of what you said, and this is big for me, is trust.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite thing to do as a catcher was to make sure that you did not shake me off.
Mm-hmm.
It bothered me if you shook me off, and if you weren't willing.
Yeah, only just because you wanted to get it right, like together with the pitcher. You know what I'm saying? Like not from a
ego.
I felt I felt that way. Like the best catchers that I've played with. Not that they were like mad at me for shaking them off, but just like mad that we weren't on the same page for that particular pitch. You know, like that would be more of an issue.
Is that something that, like, when you go through that game, and I'm sure that you've had this, because I know that even, and I played nothing but, I got as high as college baseball and caught, and so after that I just hit. So I don't. Yeah. It's been a long time since I've been behind the dish again. But my biggest thing was always like, try to make it through a game where my pitcher doesn't shake me. And even if it was like a good pitch and the guy hit it out or something like that, like he look at me, go like that, it's like, that was the right pitch to throw. You know, it's like, does that happen through like the countless hours in between your innings? And, because I don't think during spring training, like, I know that you, in your mind, you're playing out sequences and stuff like that, but it's easy to execute when there's not a hitter there trying to challenge you. Do you feel like that trust is built more in-game, in between pitches, mound visits? Where do you think that trust is gained the most?
Yeah, the most I'd say like is in the trenches, in the seventh inning, with guys on base, big pitch, throw some fingers down, throw the pitch, strike three, awesome job. Like, we got out of it. I don't think anything replicates or even comes close to that. But how to build it and like where it starts. Man, it starts in some of that very first instances and where you shake somebody's hand. You know what I mean? Because at the end, there's like, we don't have a mutual respect for each other from a pitcher and a catcher standpoint, from the way that I know that you work at your craft, or that you're working on your receiving or your blocking or your pitch calling or whatever else. Now, there's probably some immediate friction going. But that first conversation, usually with a pitcher and a catcher getting to know each other, like, sometimes it happens in the clubhouse, sometimes it happens standing out for BP, like wherever, like those conversations are typically like, what's your best pitch? What's your go-to behind an account pitch? What's your put-away pitch? You like to elevate, you throw in sinkers, you throw in four-seamers, like trying to understand like the arsenal and the pitch types and how the pitcher likes to use essentially what he's working on in the bullpen to produce the outs, so like that those very like initial conversations, and it's hard for the catchers. I got to give the catchers some love. I love catchers. Catchers, literally, I remember being a kid asking my dad to catch. My dad was a catcher. Asking my dad to catch, and I could just never understand why he wouldn't let me. And then I got older, and I totally understood. Holy cow, those guys get their butt kicked.
Yeah,
they get their absolute butt kicked. From a physical like demand, but bring it back to this conversation, like not only does that catcher, is his responsibility to get to know me and my pitches and my super in-depth, what I like to do and what I don't like to do and all my nuances, but holy cow, you got on a college team, you got 17 other guys to learn, so how hard that is. Like, he's not only got to have that conversation with me, he's got to have that with everybody else and start to understand that. Because, heck, he doesn't know who's coming in on the Tuesday game in the seventh inning. And it could be me, it could be somebody else, could be anybody. So he's got to be prepared for that. Like it's very much so like a quarterback type of mentality where like they're just not responsible for their own, what they've got to do on that play. They're responsible for what everybody else has to do on that play too. Where to throw the ball with the runners and the double cuts and like all the different pitchers and their pitch types. You got all the freaking infield signs from the manager in the dugout, like we running a wheel play here, like the Dodgers last night, like what's going on? So it's very much so like that. But that trust gets just like any relationship, you know what I mean? Man to man with any relationship, that first handshake that you have with somebody, it starts then, it's really hard to overcome bad first impressions, but then those conversations evolve, those conversations really evolve. And But step back, big picture, I don't think anything even gets close to the get out of the jam, camaraderie that you guys can experience together as a pitcher and a catcher.
The emotions that can happen between pitcher and catcher, I don't know what it is. I will say that I think catchers make some of the best coaches. Oh, yeah. I think just because of what we have to experience. You see them become good pitching coaches because we've had to deal with the countless numbers of pitchers.
To some extent, you could argue they're already coaches. You know what I'm saying? They're already somewhat of a coach, like in while they're playing, because they're trying to help coach the the pitcher through, his, without the actual coach having to take mound visits every single time.
Right.
Like I think you could argue that during while you're playing, there's elements that you got to be an extension of the coach at least.
You're the only one that sees the whole field at all times.
Yep.
You never go out to shallow left field to cut a baseball. You know what I mean? And so every play is literally in front of you. And so for me, it's like I took pride in not letting my coaches call the game for me. Yeah. If I'm not on the same page, by all means, you can jump me and make sure I get locked in. But one of the things that I appreciate, and I try to teach this with the culture of even my 9U kids, it's kid pitch now, we're just starting to pitch now. And they don't know any different. It's their first time. It's been a machine for the whole time, right? Yeah. I care about bullpens. Now, they're not going to go to their pitcher and say, what's your best pitch today? We only throw one, right? Yeah. So it's like to get the thing over the plate.
Yep.
But it's after your bullpen's done, 10, 15 pitches, has to have a handshake being invested in. And I think it's just the respect that you had talked about. Yeah. I think it takes a special kind of someone to be a catcher. And when I say someone, an idiot to do the job. Because if you throw a ball in the dirt and I don't block it, you don't get yelled at.
Yeah, it's your fault.
I do. You know what I mean? And it's always going to be that. I'm like, that's not on a pass ball. That ball skipped 38 times before it got to me. Why are you throwing 56 foot curveballs and stuff?
Yeah. Spike fastballs.
You throw a spike fastball. You talk about
catcher's nightmare.
I will tell you this. I had a big, tall kid that pitched for me in high school. And I say for me. I'm caught, not for me. It wasn't my team. But he would have games where he would throw 3 fastballs in a row and every one of them on the plate or in front of the plate. Yeah. I don't know how to block it or if I got to stand up to, take it on or whatever. And it would get so bad that I would chuck a baseball at his feet as hard as I can. And, I have catchers today that like the pitchers, this is on my own team. This is my high school team. They will literally do this like over and over. And then the pitcher will say something to my catcher. And I'll look at my catcher and I go, I'll yell it across the field. Throw it at his feet as hard as you can, man. Everybody in the park's like looking at me. I'm like, there's only one way to get back at your guy. And just make him dance on the mound a little bit. With turf now, you ain't got to worry about stepping in a big old hole. But, to me, like, it just like, dude, I'm out here working. Like, I'm hot. Like, let's stay focused. Because I think when you spike 3 fastballs in a row, it's like a focus issue for me. I mean, I didn't pitch, after, I got into high school. I didn't pitch anymore. So I don't know what that was. I didn't practice it.
Focus or maybe overanalyzing too. I think it could be either into that spectrum.
I don't know that we overanalyzed in the 90s.
You're probably not. You're probably not. Where you need to be for sure. But I think it could be you're like way too in your head about your mechanics. Or totally unfocused.
That's fair.
Probably. So.
That's fair because mechanics is always played right. Yeah. So, do you think and I don't know how often your group throws to catchers. I would imagine once you're getting into leaving for spring training and things like that for some of your pro guys, they're probably throwing to catchers. But I'm sure there's a lot of times you're throwing in the nets, throwing into somethings.
Time box,
Do your guys make sure no matter the level that they are that they give just a little bit of love to that catcher? Or is it like a have to thing?
Even when we're like on the road at these colleges, a phrase that we always throw around to be a little bit facetious because we all believe the exact same thing is like if somebody doesn't go down there immediately, go to like bump their catcher and say thank you, we always yell at them and say shake his hand, tell him you love him.
Yeah,
because they doing good work back there for you.
I think, and do you like that? There was this episode for Greg Maddux. He had talked about I forget what is the name of his catcher. He late in his career he had a personal catcher with the Braves.
I can see his face.
Eddie something. I forget his name, but he would talk about like Greg Maddux would be like, give him signs with his glove or do something with his ear and like tell him what kind of pitch he wanted to throw. Did you have any kind of pride's not the right word I want to use here, but things like, did you give any tells that you wanted your catcher, like kind of what you're feeling like mid at bats? Did you do stuff like that?
In professional baseball, sometimes when there wasn't much of a relationship, that's really sometimes your only way to like close that gap because he doesn't know you yet. So why would you expect him to, just be able to pull out of his butt like within a week of getting called up. Like, you're not going to know what I'm wanting to throw here with, fourth inning of my start with, my first runners on base and trying to get out of it and like whatever,
Yeah.
So yeah, we do different things. I mean, I always went to like what I did. I was kind of like fidgety as I was getting set anyways. So really I just steered my fidgetiness, is that a word? Towards like what pitch I wanted to do, like, so there were natural movements, so like as I, placed my foot on my rubber, like if I went like that and came to it was fastball. So it just went like 1, 2, 3, and 4, so here, and then if I like adjusted my jersey, then it was a 2. If I adjusted my belt, then it was a 3. And if I like did something on my pant leg below the belt anywhere, it was a changeup, so, but yeah, the only point to do that though would be like to close some of that gap. Or you earn that through being Greg Maddux.
I mean, that is a special kind of guy to begin with. But
what I'll also say, like something that's very unique like that. Doc Holliday is another guy that I know like did a lot of stuff like that.
Can you tell everybody who that is?
The Roy Halladay.
Yeah, I know who that is.
Yeah. Roy Halladay. I got to play with like Martin Prado and some guys that like were studs like during that time frame, like when we grew up, and they got to play with all the guys that we grew up watching.
Yeah.
I got to play with Martin in his last season, and I've had numerous people like him like this tell me this, that Roy Halladay was the hardest at bat he ever had. It wasn't because he threw 100 like you see everybody like saying now, but bringing back to my point, kind of what I was about to say about Greg Maddux too, is that like it's because those guys had 4 or 5 different pitches and they could throw whatever they want whenever they wanted. So when you're a catcher, how that, like when you got 2-2 with me and a guy fouled a fastball off a time or two, like you knew you were putting out a curveball. I didn't have any other options. Yeah. When I got 2-1 to a lefty, like you knew you were putting out a cutter. I didn't have any other options to throw to guys like that, But when you have like major league elite, and people just can't wrap their heads around what that actually is. But like go look at the guys that've been pitching for a long time. It's that. But like I'm saying that they still probably don't understand the sharpness of the pitch and the overall command of the pitch, especially during a bullpen environment. But when you got major league elite stuff and you can, sink it, cut it, change up, curveball, like, I mean, at that point, the catcher is probably just guessing anyways, So, like, you got to give him some type of steer him in a direction of, like, what you're thinking there, especially because start to start for those guys, talking about the big leagues here very specifically, start to start for those guys, all Greg Maddux, Roy Halladay, really a lot of good pitchers. Like, those are easy ones to point out because of their arsenals, because of their success. All they would do between outings is watch video and get reports on the next lineup that they were going to face because they knew it wasn't for 5 days. The catcher's got to do that every single day for every single person.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, they got to, and they can't work a week ahead like that because we got 5 games till we get there, know?
Yeah.
But so it's some of those dynamics where, like, you would expect Greg Maddux to be more prepared for, when I face Barry Bonds. There's that famous documentary or whatever. When I face Barry Bonds in the 7th inning of whatever, I'm not going to throw him this type of pitch in the first 2 at-bats because when I get to him in the 7th inning, I want to be ready to throw him this, And it's because of the last 2 months of what I've been doing to him. Like, it's hard to expect a catcher to, like, have that deep of a memory bank. And they do, and you will, like, but it's going to be more from their personal experiences of what we did when we faced him in those starts.
Yeah.
But they're getting information on, like, well, what did Barry Bonds do last time against me? What's he been hot hitting for the last 10 days? Like, you're getting super in-depth stuff. So whatever, pull it back to the point of, I guess, what we started down there was that, like, it's earned through instances like that for guys like that with all these different pitch types and arsenals, but also like how much dedication they'd put into their pitch calling and sequences, and how much extra time for their own personal games they get to prepare for that.
Do you think that happens anymore in today's baseball?
A lot less. I mean, just simply from the fact that, you get taught and told in professional baseball to throw your best stuff and throw it down the middle. There's
I just spit everywhere.
Yeah.
That just cracks me up because at the highest levels, you're telling me that's what we're doing.
Throw your nastiest stuff and just throw it down the middle.
there's so many
And
stats.
if you don't have the nastiest stuff, though, then you don't get called up to the big leagues. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's how we're evaluating players. So that's why they're telling them that. You know, like, and it's true, but it's true because of the player's strengths and weaknesses. Because the player's strengths is his arsenal and his stuff,
Mhm.
his velocity and whatever, right? So yeah, for that guy, for sure. Like, I mean, go look. I think that's what you're about to say. Like, go look at pitches above 100 miles an hour, batting average against, right down the middle. It's like 115.
Yeah,
like it's nothing.
It's wild. It started with me in softball. So this was maybe 2018. University of Arkansas in the softball program charted 40,000 pitches. And there was this big thing that they never moved their catchers, right? They just sat up in the middle of the plate and the pitcher threw to spots. So shoulders, elbows, knees, whatever. And their batting average, like right down the middle of the plate, was wild to me.
Yep.
And we literally practice this all the time. Like, where do you put your tee? Like, no, it's very rare to walk into a batting practice and see a coach moving the tee up and out, stuff like that. It's always down the middle. Yeah. Somehow we can't execute hitting that pitch. Yeah. As a coach, I'm sitting there going, what's your favorite pitch? And they go, the one right down the middle. I go, that should be everybody's favorite pitch. Yeah. What's your actually favorite pitch? Yeah. Everybody should be able to hit down the middle. But we actually don't have very good numbers unless it's anticipated. Yeah. Like the 2-0 count that's going there, you're going to lose the baseball no matter how hard you throw.
I've heard people say that this is coming from a pitcher for sure, but like hitters sometimes don't know what to do with that pitch down the middle. Like if it's in, I know I'm supposed to pull it. If it's away, I know I'm supposed to go that way with it. But like, you're supposed to go away. You're supposed to pull it. Yeah,
what am I supposed to do? The box. Like,
so
yeah, I can honestly say that that's not my favorite pitch to hit.
Yeah.
I think what happens is you start to get real big, and then bad things can happen. Now, if I got my cheat code on, I that's the thing that I've learned is and watching big league baseball, when you throw hard, but if you throw the ball right down the middle of the plate on certain counts, they're going to get hit hard. And I think it just goes back to the kind of like the relationship. If you are trying to be really pinpoint on an 0-0 pitch, that can really impact the entire at bat from the jump. And so for me, it's like I understood the down the middle. Like, let's get the strike. It could be off speed. It could be anything that you wanted to throw. It just has to be overly competitive.
Yep. I break them down, through my own experience. This is kind of the way it made sense in my head. Now, talking to pitchers these days, I break them down into attack counts and leverage counts. And I think from the hitter version of that, you can totally spin that around. There's a hitter version of it as well, no doubt. But the pitcher version of it is attack counts are either even or, more balls and strikes, right? So like, and then your leverage counts basically are your ones where I'm either setting up a pitch, I'm going more for like a third of the plate. But if I was throwing an attack count pitch, an 0-0 is an attack count pitch, that like if it was an off-speed pitch 0-0, I'm probably just aiming slightly down but in the middle. And if it was a four seam, I'm probably slightly up and in the middle. And just 100% just trying to get strike one and trusting the fact that like the hitter stepping into the box hasn't seen me yet, So like he doesn't have me timed up yet. He hasn't seen the way the ball comes out of my hand. So like if he wants to swing at that first pitch, like odds are in my favor. Like go ahead, and I'd gladly, take a 7 to 8, 70% to 80% chance that you're going to get out right here.
Yeah.
In one pitch, So attack counts and leverage counts. So your attack counts would be like 0-0, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, and then 1-1, 2-2, 3-2. So
that brings. I didn't think about this. I probably should have asked this to begin with, anyways. I brought this up on social media once, and this is for pitcher and hitter. Okay, what is, in your opinion, the most important pitch count? So obviously 0-0, the first thing you want to do is you want to throw a strike. But I don't mean the typical 0-0 like situation, because I actually don't think that's the most important pitch count for both people. I think for pitcher, the 0-0 outweighs big time for you, because if you go 0-1, my chances are way down. Yeah. The difference between, so in my opinion, where I'm going with this, is it 0-0 for you as a pitcher?
I mean, Tied for first, maybe with 1-1.
Okay, perfect. Mine's 1-1.
Yeah.
Because the change in the gap between 1-2 and 2-1 is so big. And it doesn't mean I'm always going to get a hit. Everybody knows that. It doesn't mean that you're going to execute 1-2 and get me out. I can still hit a homer. I get all that stuff.
Yep.
But to me, like that changes the entire at bat, because now as a pitcher, you have so many different things you can throw. I have to defend until I can put myself maybe back into that 2-2. And then I'm hoping that if you see me foul off a ball, that you're going to go back to the same thing and I kind of set you up, which leads me kind of to the next conversation on, and we talked about pitcher-catcher relationship and how important that is. Let's talk about competing pitcher versus hitter. And, at what point do you think, you have the advantage, I have the advantage, the umpire has the advantage? Because I always believe that there's a pitch to the pitcher, a pitch for the hitter, and a pitch for the umpire, and a bat for the pitcher, and a bat for the hitter, and a bat for an umpire. Somewhere along the lines, those three things are going to happen. And I feel like one of my favorite things ever was Pete Rose. And again, this goes back to I didn't have data. I mean, we had to pay attention to who we were facing. So I'll give you an example. In Robbie Joseph, his son's over with Sereno's Midland team. I caught him and I played against him in high school. And then when we were younger, I caught him. He was the same way. He threw all three slots and he'd throw 5 pitches from all 3 slots. Now, clearly throwing changeups from different spots didn't always look the same. The depth was whatever. But when I would go face him, I had to do something very aggressive early, because if I got to anywhere else, I didn't know what he was going to throw, and so I had to kind of try to outsmart him. But the thing that I learned back then was Pete Rose had said, somebody asked him what makes him a great hitter. He says, I have 27 at bats in a game. That's 9 times 3. 9 innings, 3 outs an inning. If assuming you go 1, 2, 3, whatever. He goes, that's the minimum that I had. So I would learn from the pitcher's tendencies.
To everybody else.
To everybody's ABs. And then I go, okay, well, he throws 80% this. And I think about how much I do like data. And I know that there's a large portion of it going this way. You're seeing it in the big leagues. Like we just saw how many scouts get, annexed because of the analytics that are available to us. They're professional scouts that, boots to the ground kind of thing. They're kind of eliminating them. I know that the Cardinals did the opposite. They kept everybody, but they need to. But the game's driving that way. And it's like, how much of that takes away from our kids actually watching at bats and learning at bats, and then turning around after they have a certain at bat and going, that's all right. I learned. I'm going to walk back and tell the next guy what I saw. I'm going to tell the depth that I saw. Like, what does that, like, as a former pitcher, like if I go to my teammate on deck and I'm expressing something to him, do you think about that at all? Or you still stay to the game plan? Because I think about, like, as a catcher, if I see him talking, I go, I got to stay on my game today, because they're communicating. You don't see that anymore.
I think personally, I don't think I ever gave it much thought. I viewed every at bat as like its own at bat, and maybe against the particular player from like at bat to at bat, you're definitely carrying some thoughts with you. But to be honest with you, I think it's just because it was so like normal and natural. That pretty much happened all the time. When I was pitching, so like it was nothing that I was like. Not to say it happened all the time, but like it was a regular thing. Yeah, because we didn't have an iPad to go back to the dugout to and watch the video and see the data and whatever. Like that's all you had was either your own eyes or what somebody was going to tell you. So no, I mean I didn't read too much into it, but I definitely could see where the readiness of all that information could diminish some of those conversations. But I think the people who are doing it the best, the people who have been leaders in it for the last like 10 years, are the ones who have found the really sweet spot between, understanding the game and the conversations and the visuals and the tendencies and the percentages and things that we would call like old school baseball mentality with the new school stuff, the new school data collection, and finding some path, in the middle of that. using data to your advantage as an old school baseball guy, using data as an advantage to just put yourself in more successful opportunities more often than not, and that's what people should be trying to do.
Do you think a guy like Ted Williams would have hit 500 if he had today's data, or do you think it would have hurt him?
I mean, depends on how he used it. I think the argument could be made for both, like if he overthought some of it, and like a lot of people do, then yes, certainly could have hurt him.
I hated, that's a strong word, being told where the pitch was at second base. Like if the second baseman was out there and he would point a direction and tell me what was coming. Because
instead of like trusting your reactions.
I had built game plans, and one of the things I would imagine as a hitter, this has to be the same with the pitcher. I didn't my head, obviously when I played, all we had was stats against the team, whatever. Right. And back then you didn't have the how the GACs do the back-to-back days. I swear every conference game we had against Hazelwood Central, we faced the same guy. Same thing with Pattonville, same thing with McClure because of the way that the schedules worked. You know what I mean?
Every Tuesday. I pitched every Tuesday conference game, and I pitched against every opponent.
It was, okay, so I knew what he had. And so that's you just go out there and go, okay, well, I'm going to hope to guess right and just don't miss your guess. Yeah. And the reason I brought up Ted Williams is because I remember in his book, The Science of Hitting, he had talked about being a guess hitter.
Yeah.
And so many people are wanting to take that away because of data, which this is what drives me bonkers about like some of the here in the Cardinals talk, especially with previous coaches, is the guy throws 86% sliders in this situation, and it's a right down the middle pitch. And for the history of baseball, a certain pitch it's always there, like a 2-0 count. Like let's say he's like 86%, and he throws a slider, or what? Maybe 2-0 is not count.
Way worse
maybe
to take a 2-0 fastball looking for a slider than it does to take a 2-0 slider right down the middle looking for a fastball.
It drives me crazy. I don't understand like why it's because I would imagine that as a pitcher that in these counts, I know that. Mm-hmm. So you have to try to make sure that you keep the team off the game plan or whatever. And so you're trying to change that. And for me, I'm like, hunt your zone. I don't always say a pitch because I feel like if I'm a down ball guy, I will never swing it off speed down unless I'm bad. If I'm having a bad run, I'm going to swing at it. But I swing at that fastball down, I just spin on a off speed. So what I feel like that helps me do is I have to make you elevate that pitch because I'm not going to chase your strikeout pitch. Right. I'm going to have to make you elevate that and put it into the spot that I like, right? You throw that changeup up, it's going to where it's going matters to me. And I try to think that stuff and try to teach that, but none of these young people think like that anymore. And so my goal is to where's the ball going? Do you know what spin is? Do you have a guy that's this way or is it this direction? And I don't swing at the ball out here. I swing at where it's going in my mind. I don't know if that always happens because when you look at the video, it never looks like that. Sure. But is that like how you want to finish your pitches? Is like you're throwing to where you want the ball to end? And the reason I bring that up is because that's how I compete. That's what my thought process is if I see you throw the ball and I see spin on it's on the corner, it will not end on the corner. Yeah. You might have tried to execute that because you wanted to end it up over here. If you wanted to end up on the corner, you'd have thrown it middle of the plate.
Right. I think there's different people. People learn different ways, visualize things different ways. Different things are going to work for them. But basically, you got two different types of pitchers essentially visually. I know people who, if they're trying to throw a curveball, they're looking like perfectly down and away where the catcher's setting his glove out, and they're looking at that and they try to throw it, and that's where they want it to land, and then I know people, I was one of them, where if I wanted that ball to land right there, I had to throw the ball at his mask, or I'd have, once I got consistent shapes and breaks down on my pitches, then I knew I had a spot where I had to start that pitch. And I don't think I realized that about myself actually until I got older, because I think I was looking down the way trying to do that, and then you realize that man, I'm just missing so many of them somewhere, typically more down on the way with a breaking ball or up an arm side with a fastball is pretty common. At least it was for me. But once I got older, I realized that like, man, yeah, okay, I'm trying to go like down and away, but this slider that I'm throwing actually has to start like just inside the zone, like by the hitter's, thigh for it to get actually over there, or this cutter has to be here, or like, so like for my cut fastball, especially to a lefty, I mean, I got to the point where like they knew it was coming. That was fine. Like I didn't care, especially if I got behind in the count. But I would throw a cut fastball and I would try to throw it right at the catcher's mask as hard as I possibly could and cut the ever-living crap out of it. And if it cut to a ball, didn't care. Like it's hard to see and hard for them to read, hard for them to hit. And if it, didn't, I mean, it'd have to cut a long way, for that to happen, for it to be a ball. But like they would usually wind me up somewhere. If I keep the elevation okay, it would usually wind me somewhere up and in on the corner of the plate. So once I got that consistent shape down, then I could start making tunnels like that and just throw it right there and then let my hand do what I know it needs to do to get the ball to move the way I want it to do. And I know it's going to end up, as I got older, I got better at those things, and you have to develop consistent pitch shapes though to be able to do any of that, which was why I think when I was younger, or any younger pitcher, that's really challenging to do, because one breaking ball does this and then one breaking ball does that and then one breaking ball is real big. Like you can't establish any lanes or tunnels doing that.
That's just immaturity though, right? Like
yeah, for sure,
for that kind of stuff.
For sure.
You bring that up and now it's starting to bring me back to the pitcher catcher relationship, because I had a kid who had a big curveball in high school, Greg Prost, and I never showed a glove. If I knew that he was missing, I would just go like this. Back then, it was always about the glove back then. You know what I mean? You had to show your glove. And I would literally hold my glove behind the batter. And he would just dump this curveball. He'd throw it right in his mind, would throw it at his head, and that thing would just right down the middle of the plate. And it was funny because we'd always, get guys looking, buckling. There's nothing better than, as pitcher catcher, that when the guy buckles and, his knees break after ankles break after 3-4 times of shaking. You love that, but you get to know certain guys, and like, was that something that you had in like the younger ages where you had like have a coach that say to your catcher, like, don't give a target, like you need to throw the baseball where you wanted to end it? Was those kind of because that's what I do, because that's how I thought even in high school. If I felt a pitcher was like trying to throw to my glove, but it was ending up here, I took my glove away. And then I just moved me to the spot that I wanted him to throw to, and he hit me in the middle of the chest. Yeah. I didn't know that back then, like you just talked about, like with pitch shapes and stuff like that, understanding those things. I just knew that it worked back then, and so using, it just worked. Yeah. So you do what works.
Visually. Yeah.
And so I'm definitely the visual guy. Yeah. For sure. Do you think that still plays in today's game?
Yeah, I think the simpler those adjustments can be, especially I was going to say for the pitcher, but holy cow, for the hitter too, that like the simpler those adjustments can be, usually the better chance you have for success, especially within the moment, within the game. Because everything's just like moving so fast. Like if you're out there thinking about your mechanics, like you're already toast for the day. If you're thinking about your swing mechanics in the box, like you're toast, right? So, like as a pitcher, like you're just out there fighting and surviving, trying to get the ball where you need it to go. Like trusting that the work that I've done on my mechanics or on my strength or on my arm care, whatever, it's like going to come to fruition today. But like you're doing whatever it takes to get the ball to where you need it to go. And so, basically the pitcher cues or conversations, especially on the mound during bullpen scenarios that we have these guys in. That's one of the easiest fixes is that, you throw like 3 pitches to the same miss spot, meaning if I'm trying to go glove side and I'm missing it, just arm side for a ball, not necessarily a bad pitch, but not where I was trying to throw it, Now you're going to get a pretty quick from me or any one of our coaches to be like, hey, like, you're trying to throw it there and it's ending it up here. Why don't we just take that visual, move it over a little bit, take those sight lines, move it over a little bit, try to throw it off the plate away and just because something's disconnected, right, between where you're wanting the ball to go and where your release point is. So if you do it a couple of times in a row and your miss location is also generally in the same miss spot, it's very simple adjustment. Why don't we just take that visual over a little bit, get the ball where we need it to be, It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that.
Dude, it, it drives me bonkers that, my, I think I say it probably every week on the show. My dad always told me that I can make mistakes, so I just can't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
And when you ask a player to adjust,
Mm-hmm.
and they have no clue how to adjust, you're not. I mean, there's no, like in my mind, there's nothing other than do something different.
Mm.
I don't know what that means. Like, other than just that. So if a kid keeps missing arm side, it's like, do something different.
Yeah.
And they can't. It's like that. I don't think those kids ever either want to or never will make it, in my opinion, at any levels that they might pitch at. You have to be able to read something and make adjustments, and then just be like, well, that's not working. Let me throw something else. Why can't you throw a 3-0 slider and you throw 5 balls in a row on your heater? Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. No coach wants you to throw a 3-0 slider.
Yeah. Do something different.
Well, if you're going to walk the guy, just walk him to try to change something different.
Right,
And it's the same thing with hitting.
Yeah.
The hitters today, which I think it's easier to, I'm not using the big leagues for an example. I'm using high school sports. I think it's super easy to attack high school hitters right now. They have no clue how to hit in the batter's box.
Yeah.
They don't know. They should know all these kids, because if you're out in our area, there's a lot of elite pitching. Yeah. So for high school kids, right? And there's some good hitters that don't hit in high school. They make zero adjustments.
Right.
It's like, kid. I love this kid. I'm not gonna say his name, but he can't hit a curveball. So if you can't hit a curveball, what do you think you're gonna get from every single pitcher in the conference? Yeah. Don't
steady dose.
Drop F-bombs and walk back to the dugout because you're not throwing you a heater so you can mash it, because that's what you eat. That's what we should be eating. Why don't you hit the elevated curveball 6 miles? He'll start throwing you fastballs. Mm-hmm. But yet you keep, you swing at the balls that are down in the dirt. There's no plan. Yeah. And I think, and I don't know where you learned this at. I have my coaching hat on right now, so I'm trying to put myself back into high school and kind of what made me the hitter I was. My whole goal was to not miss my pitch. I also understood that I'm not going to get my pitch 5 times a game, so I'm not going 5 for 5 on barrels. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go maybe 2 for 5 on barrels, or maybe even a 1 for 4 on my barrels, because I'm going to get my pitch and I'm going to hit it hard. Mm-hmm. I usually put myself in a position that I might have to fight down 2 strikes. Yeah. But for me, it was like, just don't miss my guy. Like, if I get him, I'm going to hit it as far and as hard as I can. I tried. Mm-hmm. And for me, I thought that always late in the game was, I don't know that helped you determine what I was doing in my approach to hitting. Because I would imagine, I don't think you go to Mizzou and pitch if you didn't have somewhat of an idea in high school. I don't know. Who called your pitches? Perkins or your pitch catcher?
Did. Yeah.
I would imagine that you had an attack plan for every guy.
Yeah. I mean,
unless you were just
generally, like I more of what I did, and I would say most pitchers do at early ages, is that you're entirely pitching to your strengths until I absolutely have to pitch to the hitter weaknesses. And to be honest with you, that's probably true for a lot, and for all the different levels is what I was going to say. But I kind of have some thoughts all coming to me at the same time. That's why I'm kind of bumbling around them. But I think it evolves. It's obviously different because it's relative to probably your talent level at said, level that you're at, high school, college, professional baseball, how your talent kind of like stacks up with that. Now, I'll give you an example. I mean, just kind of what we were talking about, like the 99 mile an hour, 100 plus guy. He's going to throw the ball down the middle of the stuff play, and that's probably a good idea for him. But your guy that throws 89, 91 in the big leagues, and he's still having success, he's not going to do that. But he's going to have to pitch to more hitter weaknesses because he doesn't have the same sort of outlier strengths. Mm-hmm. Okay, so peel that back. A kid throwing in the low 90s in 2010 or whatever. I didn't have a whole lot of game plans for hitters. No, I had game plans of certain areas in the counts during certain counts with certain pitches that I like to go to. As I got older, for sure, when I was younger, there was definitely a little bit more of I know this guy Rakes, and he's the conference hitter of the year or whatever last year, and I'm going to throw him more like XYZ. But I still wouldn't even say they were like detailed enough. But it is all relative to the, age and competition level.
Yeah, I was trying to put my catcher's gear back on and think about like how I would tack guys. And, we had some guys back in high school that could hit fastballs.
Yeah.
I would literally tell them, like, you're not going to get a heater here.
Yeah.
I would tell my guys, like my pitchers, that I would talk to the hitters the whole time. Yeah. And they would look at me, why are you going to throw that? I was like, because you cannot hit a curveball, tighter the spin kind of thing. Yeah. And it was always funny that these things would happen and you could get outs. And I'm like, well, where at what point do you just change that mindset? Because I feel like, and maybe, I don't know where this comes from, and maybe I actually can't go back and kind of put myself back in my high school shoes anymore. But when I think about hitting, if I knew that your strengths, and it's not even necessarily the strengths that it's in pitch counts. It has to be like, if I knew that you had a plus fastball that ran in on my hands a little bit, I'm going to cheat that. Yeah. And I'm going to cheat that until I have 2 strikes. And I have to work you back into that spot, right? So that was my competitive nature. I'm just going to use heaters for an example. You throw me 2 inside heaters, which that's your game plan because you're trying to sink on my hands, get me ground out, whatever. I know that going into this, or definitely after my first at bat, I should have seen this, and the other outs that we've had up to this point, that you like that sinker. Did you throw a sinker?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. I just was kind of guessing. Because that seems like a really good pitch that hurts the hands.
Yeah. Honestly, at that age and all the way through college, but when I had a good riding fastball, and I didn't learn that until I saw more metrics on it when I got older. So I ended up finishing my career throwing predominantly 4-seamers. But at that age,
the stuff that rides.
But that's how we got taught, though, right? I mean, every pitcher was supposed to throw a 2-seamer, and starting pitcher down in the zone, get ground balls, and throw as few pitches as you can, and throw 8 innings. Do
you think, like, just like you can set me up in at bats, do you think hitters can set? That's kind of what I was getting at, was kind of setting you up to throw to my strengths, because I know what my strengths are. I can't miss my strength because you might only give me 1 or 2, and I'm not talking strikes. I'm talking my strength, right? Sure. And so if I use the heater and I know that like first 2 pitches were in, I kind of weak foul balled. I'm like, okay, in my mind, I'm going to say I'm going to cover on the 3rd pitch. I'm going to cover the outside half because he's going to set me up for the 4th pitch. Mm-hmm. Do you do that right now with your pitchers? Like, are you just like pitch to pitch? Because for me as a catcher, I darn well did not think pitch to pitch. I was trying to think how to set up pitches down the road. And if I didn't get to them, great, game plan over. I got them in the bank for later.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, if you get me on a dirty slider, and I'm whatever at it, I'm like, he's going to go back to that. I got to spin on that thing and then make sure that he brings that back into where I can hit it. Mm-hmm. Have you been set up by it has to happen at the big leagues, because I know that this is the kind of stuff that they think about.
Yeah.
Do you think we could do this, and do we do enough of it in the youth level? Because I think if we're trying to build IQ for this sport and development, like we say we're doing, don't we have to have those conversations to actually get these players to think about sequencing a guy like me? You know that I'm a big power hitter. Yeah. So how are you going to get me, off of the fastball, thinking something else, and then busting me back in with the fastball to like just screw my whole bats up, for the whole day, because that's not normal. Yeah. Because I'm a big power hitter. You know what I mean? So can you do that? Or should we be doing that more in today's baseball with our youth and focusing on certain things? And I am bringing this kind of back to like metric stuff like that. I know this is what you do. Mm-hmm. But do we need to bring that back? Because we deal with more average guys than elite.
Sure.
So do we need to teach them to pitch, and do we need to teach them to be better hitters more than chasing exit velos and pitching velos?
Yeah, during different months of the year, absolutely. Your development objectives has to change. You're not chasing velocity in April. Like what your velocity is in April is a byproduct of all the months that you were doing before that.
So you say that again so that everybody out there understands programming and process.
Well, yeah, I mean, in general, even when I was young, what I would tell myself, I can remember like in college especially, on a 7-day like pitching cycle, like, I was gonna work hard to throw hard for 6 days, and then one day go out and hit the mitt, and like whatever you did for those 6 days kind of comes to fruition on the seventh day, on the game day, But kind of back to your question, I think it's all very dependent on the athlete, and then even within that, dependent on the month or the objective, like for the athlete. The overall like approach to the game, kind of go back to what I said earlier, like without the ability to consistently create shapes or execute pitches, there are no sequences, there are no tunnels, right? Because you can go in there and have a great game plan where it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna throw a Mitch fastball inside first pitch. He doesn't like the first pitches, right? So he's going to take the first pitch. So I'm going to throw him a pitch that he likes, and he's going to be mad that he didn't swing at that pitch. Then I'm going to throw him a slider because he's going to be mad at the first one. But I'm going to keep it outside. If he chases it, great. I'm 0-2. If he doesn't, I'm 1-1, and I've split the plate already with him. Now I can probably do a lot of different things.
Yeah,
right?
I'm confused.
So you start talking about things like that, and we can't throw an arm side or a glove side slider, then like you're wasting your breath. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like the first things first, usually like if you wanted to like try to break this down in a curriculum, and we don't do it like this for everybody because everybody's kind of got their own path. But like first things first is like force production, body mass and force production. And then, like can we repeat deliveries? Basically just like body control, body awareness, because you're going to need that before we can consistently repeat, like release points and pitch shapes. And then you start talking about sequences. Some guys could be more advanced with their feel and ready to have those conversations at 14, and some people aren't, and I mean, look, go all the way down to what we were talking about earlier with those major league players. People cannot wrap their head around this. There are major league players that still are not doing that. They're throwing the ball as hard as they can right down the middle, and it still works. And people are like, what? No, every single major league pitcher has 5 pitches and throws to the corner. No, they don't. And it's so false. They never have. I think it's gotten more prevalent this like day and age, but it's all just like your strengths though, right? If I'm a stuff guy, I'm going to use my stuff to get you out. If I'm a command guy, I'm going to use my command to get you out. And the guys that you see that are blended, that are good command and good stuff, those are your top draft picks. Those are your guys that are in the big leagues for a long time, and like just know who you are and be great at what you are,
Those guys like the difference is like I think about Mason Miller. There's been one home run hit in all of big leagues for over 104 miles an hour, I think, or 103. And that was off Mason Miller this year, by the way. He gave up that heater.
Go look. Aroldis Chapman is documented this year for talking about his velocity's kind of come back, and documented talking about him just trying to throw the ball as nasty as he can right down the middle. It's documented about this year already, and that's like a perennial big leaguer. Obviously, like great 38? Stuff. Yeah,
he's 38, 39 or something.
He's up there, So, and that, I mean, Aladdin dude, like, so like, it just really depends. It depends on the person, depends on the player, depends on their skill set, and should we be teaching that? Yeah, for sure. If that's what the player needs, like to get guys out, and sequences, and is their command and their overall like. Arsenal ready for that. And look, I mean, big leaguers are able to repeat their arsenal, repeat their delivery, and repeat their sequences. But they've identified like what they're really good at, their outlier stuff, and that's what they're using to try to get guys out. So could they try to sequence somebody? Yeah, sure. Like
it's only going to happen.
It's not because of a lack. Yeah, well, it's not because of a lack of and their sequences, like their sequences. Sequences for them are still going to exist. I'm not trying to say or suggest they're throwing every single pitch right down the middle, just as hard and with no care where it goes. Like they've got sequences or like routines and things within that make them good. Like maybe they'll try to throw one just above the catcher's like chest on one, and then just below the catcher. But they're like really focused on like not being too nitpicky to the corners. I think of like this picture that we've painted in everybody's minds of like what a major league pitcher is. They're not trying to do that. They're not trying to backdoor slider. They're not trying to like, especially in like hitter advantage counts. There are guys that are, but that's how they have to get guys out. Your Kyle Hendricks and your Greg Maddux, guys of the world.
It's extremely hard to play this game and to put some of these pressures on young people early. I will say that I think what I was getting at was it's kind of hard, to put this. You need to throw hard. You need to throw more strikes. You need to do all these things, and they're still just super underdeveloped. And like it really actually doesn't click until you get older.
Yeah.
It's probably that way for me, and I'm having just a hard time going back and just really actually understanding. I could hit, right. So in my mind, I just made sure I did certain things at times to give me the best chance to get on base. I love the thing that Barry Bonds talks about, and you see it played over and over, is if he could catch the ball, if I can catch the ball, I can hit the ball. All I'm doing is playing catch. I have to beat one guy.
Yep.
I've never talked about trying to beat the center fielder. I'm trying to beat you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if I hit a barrel and I happen to hit it on the ground and it's 95 plus, ground ball to shortstop, and I'm out, that stinks.
Yep.
Because I know if I elevate it, it's gone.
Yep.
But again, if I go to try to chase elevation,
you're
getting me out now in other ways. And so what I'm getting out of this is like, I'm trying to catch a barrel and you're trying to throw to miss my barrel. Mm-hmm. And it could be right down the middle of the plate because I'm not thinking that for one. So I'm going to get all out of whack and I'm going to try to lose it. But then you start to migrate into different spots of the strike zone. Mm-hmm. And competing is something I think that we have to do a better job of trying to teach our young people to compete. I think it talks about how you attack hitters. It talks about how I should attack pitchers.
For sure.
Instead of just worrying about a swing and miss or taking a pitch that, why can't you just take a strike?
Yep.
Because is it because somebody in the stands is groaning, or you look down at your coach and your coach is going like this? And I'm like, well, you like the inside pitch, so that's why I went like that. And the kid goes, yeah, I was looking for a slider. And I'm like, who looks for a slider first pitch? Like, because the kid knows you, then why didn't you swing at the slider or wait or whatever? I don't know. Yeah. Just whatever the conversation was. I know that none of that made sense, but I just think what I liked about bringing this on was the pitcher-catcher relationship. I think it's super important that the culture's built at a young age when we start throwing bullpens, 9 years old, that the relationships are being built because these are kids that could be, learning for the next, till they get to high school, whatever. And it breeds something, right? It breeds growth, it communication, conversations. When you get ticked off at each other, you can figure it out if you're not having those conversations. On the hitting side, I took pride in trying to beat you one time. Yeah. I know that you took pride in beating me all 3 times, but my goal was to just beat you once because that's what was realistic. Yeah. And if I got lucky, I got lucky. And if I didn't, I just wanted to make sure I had I made it hard for you, right? And I don't know what's harder to do because I never looked at hitting as a failure. I just looked at it as I was 0 for 3 today. No, I didn't want to go 0 for 3. Yeah. I'm sure you didn't want to get sent out in a third, you know what I mean, and get taken out of a game. But this stuff happens, and I think if we watched more TV, we would probably see this more in today's game. Like for our youngsters, they would see how pitchers are pitching and how hitters are hitting, and then conversations that are having by our analysis on TV because you got former big leaguers
breaking down
talking about the game and how much more can we have there. And that was the goal for this show, was to try to get more information to people, like how relationships are built and then how to compete against each other. Yeah. Because I don't know that I could hit you. But I'm going to take one really good shot, and I'm going to try to make sure I don't miss your fastball.
Yeah, that's all you need.
And I hope it's at the time that I can drive in a couple runs, and you know what I mean. And so, I is it that easy? I'd like to think so. Yeah. And how can we get back to that? I think that's probably have to bring you on, or I come on your show, and we'll continue that. But how can we find you? I know that everybody should know how to get a hold of you. But just give everybody kind of their socials and keep climbing and talk about that just a little bit.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, my own socials, Brett Graves 5 on Instagram, bgraves05 on Twitter, but I'm not super active on there. We're really active on our Premier Pitching sites. Really just trying to put out more like truthful information for people, because there's so much like nonsense on social media that I we live in such an informational age. Like kids aren't dealing with a lack of information now; they're sifting through like what's the good information versus bad information. So now all that's at Premier Pitching, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. all the good stuff. And then every Monday comes out a new Keep Klimbing podcast. This past week I had Nolan on. We talked about some force development stuff. Gonna have another one here with our director of pitching, with Cody Fick. We're gonna talk about some off-season throwing program initiatives and kind of some unique things, I guess. I think everybody understands the general, take time off and build up appropriately. We're gonna talk about some details within that. So trying to provide through that a little bit higher level. Even applied to youth guys, and I don't mean to say that that it's over anybody's head, but higher level things from R&D, more unique things that we're seeing and finding within some of these big pillars that people understand.
Programming has become, I think, more and more a part of this game, and maybe more important than I think it ever has been, with the trickle down from the big leagues on down to college baseball and to high school baseball, versus your typical, going in one-on-one training. And I'm not saying that programming means that we have to train year-round, one sport kind of thing. I'm not suggesting that. But I don't see enough kids understanding how to build their own programs anymore, or even going outside and playing and figuring it out to, be a part of something. Maybe we don't have the grounds, the parks aren't available, whatever the case may be. I'm sure there's 1,000 excuses, but I think programming is becoming more important. It just doesn't matter on the pitching side either. It's on the hitting side. That's what we do. We have programming for our space, and we're seeing much better results long term through programming than we have through even the one-on-one instruction for 30 minutes or an hour a week. Mm-hmm. We're seeing big growth. And that's probably because we're putting plans together that are maximizing players' benefits, and that's the purpose.
They're designed for growth, and you're looking ahead through the future and building a progression instead of a typical lesson years ago would just been kind of or golf lessons or whatever. Is that you're often touching the same bad habits of the player over and over and over again, and where does this start to compound? So that's great. Programming, definitely agree.
Make sure you go follow them. You got to follow the Hitting Zone too. We're on all socials: Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, don't do it much. TikTok and Instagram. Did I get them all? I think
so.
I'm not on Threads. I'm not on Lemonade or whatever that is. I'm not on Tinder either. But it's just, it's always, I got some sort of crack. Shout out to Coach Andy Zaire and Timberland Softball for winning their conference. I had to make sure I got it. That's why I wore my Timberland tee. I don't know if you could tell with the green screen and the green hat, if you could see my hat. But I wore my Navy for Timberland. I'm a Timberland. I'm a Wolf. He knows that I love that group. And Libby Gospel. I don't know if you know who Libby is. Her brother Alex was a Timberland guy. I don't know if you were in the building when Alex was at Timberland. But anyways, heck of a player himself. Linwood guy. She is pitching well and apparently got some offense there that they needed. So Youth Baseball Midwest, you're already on YouTube. Subscribe. Hit the dinger. You can follow his show. You can follow Sissel's show. We got great shows that Brian does. And then obviously the Hitting Zone. That's the one I want you to tune into. You don't have to tune into his until you bring me on your show.
Just the pictures.
But make sure you go check us out. And you guys all have yourself a great day. And hopefully you were able to find something out about the relationship and maybe something that's going to help you out as a pitcher, catcher, hitter versus pitcher. Have a great day.